All right, I think I'll go ahead and get started. It looks like we've got people trailing in here, which is pretty typical. I'm Dawn Ellison, and I'm in the core group of Healthcare Reinvention Collaborative. Our other core member on the call today is Denise Wiseman. Paul is off skiing somewhere, so we wish him well. Today, we're fortunate to be shining a light on the work of a few of our network members, and I'm going to introduce them here in a moment. You will recall that our mission is to identify, connect, support, and illuminate every healthcare change maker. So we're really excited because today is our inaugural monthly Shine a Light event. And I'm going to share our agreements, just sort of an abbreviated version of our agreements here. Let me just pull that up so that you can see that. And I won't get fancy, I'll just pull them up this way. So stay curious, ask for what you need, and offer what you can. Cameras on as a default. I understand, Mama, if you need to turn it off. And share your thinking over your conclusions. We find when you can share your thinking rather than your conclusions, you will find more commonality with what other people are thinking. And then speak with intention and listen with attention. So those are just some agreements to keep in mind. All right. So we have four guests today. They will be given approximately 5 minutes to describe their work, and then they will ask for what they need from the community and offer what they can to the community. While they're informing us about their work, please feel free to let them know what you can offer them, as well as what they might offer you in the chat. So as they're talking, if you want to enter that into the chat, we'll keep track of that and we'll make sure that they're aware of what you're asking for or what you're offering related to their work. So I want to be sure we have time to get to all of our guests and then have a rich conversation. So when each guest is finished speaking, I'll introduce the next guest right away, and we'll continue until all four have had a chance to describe their work, ask for what they need, offer what they can. When they are all four finished, I'll open things up for a conversation, at which time you can ask more about their work, discuss possible collaborations, or just express appreciation for what they're doing. Before I proceed, what questions do others have? Not seeing any questions. All right. So we're going to start with our first guest, John McLeod. John is a healthcare innovator tackling the persistent challenge of patient adherence. His health tech platform is designed to address barriers to adherence that arise between patient encounters. By strengthening the therapeutic alliance, his work aims to bend the curve on adherence and measurably improve patient outcomes. John, please tell us more about the work you're doing, and then you can go right into asking for what you need and offering what you can.
Thank you, Don. Hello, everybody. So happy to be here. So grateful to be here. As an entrepreneur in a startup, it's hard to find audiences who have any interest at all in what we're doing because we think we're breaking some ground. As Don said, my name is John McLeod. I'm the founder of Proxwell. Proxwell is a health tech care management system that can be accessed from any device anywhere, and it's focused on managing care, in particular at home. I am not a healthcare insider. I've enjoyed a long career as an advisor to business owners, focused primarily on helping them build enterprise value in designing a strategy to allow them to exit their business on their own terms. So I come to this as very much an outsider. And the reason I'm here and what happened that resulted in my being here is my own 8-year journey with my mother, who developed dementia and lived about 400 miles away from me. So I found myself becoming her primary caregiver. I'm the oldest in my family. Mother came to me and said, John, she called me Johnny, I hope you will never put me in one of those facilities. And I said, okay, Mom, I won't. We'll do what we have to. And as the oldest, I think she knew I'd somehow figure out a way to do that, which I did. So as the primary, I spent the next 8 years, as I say, really kind of worrying about all the details of her care, how things were going from that great distance of 400 miles away. So I just sort of cobbled together calendars and text strings and phone calls and Zoom meetings with the care team to try to understand where things were at all time. And needless to say, my work and my family life and everything associated with my side of the equation suffered. Our vacations were up visiting with Mom. So she passed, and when it was all over, I stepped back and I thought to myself, gee, I'm not the only family member, or we're not the only family going through such a thing. There needs to be a better way. So I started talking to some friends about it and thinking through what the choices might be. We did some bench research. We couldn't find anything out there that brought all the elements, if you will, of managing care at home together in one place. So we decided to build something that would do that. My partner and I, we built something that we thought needed initially to just provide transparent connection and timely communication in real time, or enable, if you will, real time collaboration among families, caregivers, and care professionals. And we approached it the only way we knew how, as I say, being outsiders, and that's from the demand side. We were patients and families who were accessing care through professionals and trying to do as much as we could on our own. And we suffered from not really knowing what to do. And so all of that, of course, caused us some friction. But that learning translated well into what we think is a startup health tech platform here that's on the vanguard of using systems engineering and transforming how families can manage care at home for themselves and their loved ones. So we've done a lot of research. We've combined innovative ideas in medicine and technology. Behavioral science is important in our solution. Healthcare policy, we provide support and the flexibility that families need to navigate the complexities of caregiving at home. Early on, very early on, and this is sort of being part of my own experience, we recognize that patient adherence, however it's supposed to happen, is a real barrier to outcome and to, if you will, successful implementation of quality of life as you would like to see it be, adherence to therapy. And then not having line of sight on that was very frustrating to me because I didn't know if the things that I knew needed to be happening were happening. So in designing Proxwell and building Proxwell, we put our interest in our design principles essentially into 4 areas that we consider the sort of the pillars of our health tech system. The first is structure. And the idea there is the belief that underlying framework, or essentially the structure you put in place, is going to drive the behavior of everybody who's supporting the care. Motivation and accountability. We recognize how busy everybody's lives are, and staying on task can be elusive. They can be discouraging. So consistent, regular communication, family member connection, and supporting care team collaboration, we felt was essential to driving recipient motivation, care recipient motivation, and care accountability. Timeliness. Timeliness is, we learned very early on, is very important. Even the best intentions will fall by the wayside if timeliness some way is not built into the solution. So we have a very robust set of care tools that allow for notifications and alerts when things don't go the way they should, or if people are inclined to forget what might be next, or whether they're up to bat or it's their responsibility, or if their shift is due, that allows them to know that. And then the 4th pillar here is health literacy, recognizing that people such as myself come into this with very little knowledge of what's necessary. And even throughout the course of the journey, you're constantly on a mission to try to understand what's available and what can be done. And unless the connection and the collaboration is in place where you can observe, if you will, what others are doing, there's no peer-to-peer learning, no shared accountability, if you will. And so the members of the team kind of come in a silo and leave in a silo, and they haven't learned anything. And they haven't learned anything for their own purposes and transferring that knowledge to go somewhere else. But they also haven't learned anything in terms of applying what ought to happen next for the care recipient in question here. So we use the design principles of andragogy, which is all about adult learning, recognizing that adults learn best through self-directed and peer-to-peer experience that are differentiated based upon life circumstances, internal motivators, and the desire for quality of life. So every action within Proxwell is tracked and recorded and charted. So it provides care and health providers, if you will, or anybody who's an interested party, at a glance insight into adherence or what activities have been taking place. So if something goes awry, we can immediately eliminate what didn't happen that should have happened and make a corrective action. That's a quick overview of Proxwell. Needless to say, I've got slides and decks, and I could keep you here all afternoon. We're not going to do that, and I've probably already lost you here. I hope not. But let me talk a bit about what I could use some assistance and help with, what I need, as I think we frame it up. We're interested as outsiders very much in feedback, expertise, advice. We are looking for advisors and board members. Ultimately, we're going to be looking for investors. We're not quite at that stage yet. It's still very much self-funded, and I am the primary investor. We're interested in real-world use cases, collaboration with other partners or partner organizations who would like to run pilots or use cases and implement this solution to strengthen it, to find out what's wrong with it, to how it could be done better, and what we can offer. I do have expertise, and this came up in another call I was on, in business formation and strategy development and exit planning. So I can help anybody who's trying to do a startup in the industry who's part of this. I could give you some advice there. I think I also very much can give a fresh perspective from the demand side on the reality of the fear, the uncertainty, the challenges, the discord within families, and all that family caregivers and family face when approaching aging in place, care adherence to therapy, the alliance, if you will, between the care providers, the care professionals, and the families, or even just within the family members herself. And then I'd also like to offer to anybody who has a particularly unique care need that thinks this could help in any way, some complimentary access to try the tool. And that we're happy to do. If you have any interest or anybody else in the group that could use that, then reach out. So that's my story. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. That's a great offer and some meaningful asks as well. All right, Wael Sasu. Dr. Wael Sasu is passionate about promoting patient-centered and clinician-centered medical care. He recently founded CAPER, the Clinician and Experience Registry, a platform that gathers insights from clinicians and patients about their experiences in everyday medical practice. Through CAPER, Dr. Sasu seeks to identify critical issues and foster a healthcare culture that better serves the needs of those directly affected. Wael, go ahead.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, Denise, also for helping organize this. And thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll talk a little bit about CAPER. And this is a new initiative. And the data that I will present today is actually the first time it's being presented. So really excited to share all of that. We start by looking at individualized healthcare and how we don't really have all that data. We have a lot of interest in doing it, but we don't have a lot of data on the actual process and what's happening and what's important to the different sides of healthcare. And our specific focus would be the healthcare providers and the patients themselves, not the hospitals, not the business side of it, not the money-making side of it. We want to see how we can make healthcare better for the people who are very intimately involved with it. So we have very fragmented individual reported data. We can't really innovate with all of that, especially when it comes to clinicians and patients. We have all these buzzwords about burnout and about everything else, but we're not really working in the trenches to address that. We don't have a lot of secure access to actionable insights because most of the insight is private. Most of the insight is by individual institutions that would rather keep it to themselves, understandably so, for market power. And then we have a lot of missed opportunities as a result to align patient care with actual real world needs. As clinicians, and as a clinician myself, we always think that we're doing the best of what our patients need, which is sometimes true, sometimes not. So with my clinical background I'm an anesthesiologist, a full-time anesthesiologist and a researcher. I've done a lot of research on medical innovations and on patient-centered outcomes. And I started to identify certain places where we can do better. So we came up with a solution called CAPER, Clinician and Patient Experience Registry, where we wanted to understand the subjective experiences of those clinicians and patients. And the aim is to create, and this is the soft launch. We're creating a registry that provides anonymized data that policymakers and decision makers can use to drive healthcare transformation. And this is a platform that would capture those perspectives, and any stakeholders involved, whether from the administrative side or from the clinical side or the research side for that matter, they can use to drive the positive change that we need. These are in the form of surveys where we send surveys not to targeted populations because that's a big limitation in survey research. We send surveys on national levels, and we can send this to several countries in the world. And as you will see later, the data that we get back is both actionable, timely, and very insightful. It's all de-identified, it's all anonymized, it's all non-incentivized on purpose because we want to capture the true sentiment of the respondents. Our key features are we derive those insights from experiences that the respondents report. And as far as we know, this is the first comprehensive and customizable registry of its kind. So we're not only asking the questions we want to ask, we're asking questions that people who would subscribe to this registry would want to ask. And it's very customizable and it captures very targeted feedback on specific topics. The aim is to support innovation in patient care and research, as well as in clinician experiences. And the topics, as I said, are customizable. These are some sample insights from a pilot survey that we did. This was more of a proof of concept. We launched a survey in the US and UK. We got 1,000 responses per country. And the topic was patient perspectives on in-hospital hemodynamic management. So we looked at how they felt about hemodynamic monitors, how do we measure their blood pressure, their heart rate, and everything related to that, and how they felt about it. So basically, we're looking at how patients felt about everything that we're doing, because from our perspective, we have all the cool technology and we're using it and we know what it's doing, but do the patients understand why this is important? Why is the hospital investing in such expensive equipment? Why are the clinicians so interested in the output of this equipment? So some of the insights that we can get is very simple, as in what do the respondents use to answer those surveys? And this is important for anybody who's interested in market research, for example. You can see that about 70% of our respondents, of 1,000 respondents in the US, use a smartphone. We look at age groups. We can look at specific questions. So this question was, how important is it that your clinicians share information with you during your hospital stay? You'll see that almost 66% thought it was very important, and then another 26% thought it was somewhat important. So the grand majority think it is important that clinicians share information, which, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. But I couldn't find this data in publications that so clearly stated. How important is it for you to understand the medical tests that you undergo? We run tests on a daily basis. Do we always go and explain to our patients? Not quite. And 90-some% of our respondents said it was important. Would you like explanations about the machines and the monitors around your bed? Not just put a bunch of monitors on and leave. Yes. More than 60% want to understand everything that's around them. And only a very minor proportion of the respondents didn't want to know anything. Would you like being informed about normal blood flow measurements and heart rate? Not just the abnormal ones. Anything that's normal, would you still want to know? And the majority said they wanted to know immediately. How often would you like updates? Daily. Look at 70-some% wanted daily updates about their care. And then do you think, so what's the point? Fine, we will tell the patients, what's the point? Do you think that understanding your medical care better would help you manage your health and trust your medical team more in the future? 59% definitely yes, 33% probably yes. So it matters to the patients. It's not just a matter of sharing data and just throwing things at them. They want to be involved because they want to be involved in their own care. And this goes at the center of patient-centered healthcare. And a lot of people are pushing for that, but this provides more of a framework of how we can do it and what areas we can focus on. And then what would help you feel most in control of your health and involved in your treatment planning? The number one answer was involvement in treatment decisions, along with other things like being informed about the progress and so on. So then think of these questions and several others, hundreds others in our minds, that we can start implementing over time. And now we can start running the surveys, say, twice a year, and we see how the perspectives of patients are changing. And we can link that to certain big advancements in healthcare. Let's say a law is passed where you have to do something with patients where you share information, or anytime they get a device on, you explain to them what the device is and what it's doing. And think about the population effect of that and how patients will respond to our healthcare, which I think would be an improvement. And then how industry, device manufacturers, hospital systems, policymakers, stakeholders, how they would change policies and change, for example, certain details about their devices to cater to this interest from the patients and to drive more involvement in healthcare, which will be, one, very helpful to the clinicians because they want the patients to be involved in order to improve their health. And it would be good for the population because now we are targeting exactly what they want. And then we can tailor these solutions for diverse needs. Different stakeholders might have different questions they want to ask. They might have different data that they're interested in seeing. Researchers want to see aggregate data. Say industry, for example, will want us to have specific information about specific aspects of healthcare. And we can do all that. Now, the support that this would need would be much like any startup where we're now looking for early adopters. We're just launching this. We want to shape the development of this registry. We want to have a certain number of questions that we're asking routinely, and then we want to have some customizable questions that go per participant in the registry. We want to spread the awareness, of course, and this is one way we're doing it. You're probably going to be seeing more about this on LinkedIn. We have some webinars planned, and definitely this cannot come cheap. So some funding and support would be helpful, and the funding is not the major limitation. It's the knowledge about what this is and that it exists and what it can do for everybody. That's the next key step. What we can offer is the data, of course. Data is powerful, and data can be very influential in what we're doing. And we want to capture the true data for these topics. And we can offer this data to everybody who's involved in shaping the initiative. We have different tiers of access to different kinds of data, and we can customize those insights based on the needs of the people who are interested in them. And then when it comes to pricing, what we can offer now is very flexible pricing because we're in the very early stages and we'd like to have as much involvement as possible. This is a sample of pricing tiers. The chunks that we go with are 1,000 responses per country. So let's say we run 10 countries in the world. Each country gets 1,000 responses or a multiple of 1,000. And then these are the average prices for new surveys that we're starting or existing data that people are just interested in retrospectively analyzing. And we're offering early adopter discounts, multi-country discounts, multi-year discounts, and a lot of optional services, which we can talk about in detail later. And now we're just planning to build this, scale it, and get it in front of people who would be interested in it. So please feel free to reach out anytime, and we can explore how this can align with your goals. And you can probably even help us shape and evolve the initiative itself. This is our contact email, and we're happy to answer any questions you have. And these are some QR codes for the website, the email, and the companies that are involved. Rewe is the survey company that launches the surveys. Ether Innovations is a company that I started to help drive medical innovation in general, and this is our flagship product. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Weil. And this is really exciting to be at the forefront of this kind of research. It's really kind of turns things upside down, which is a new way of looking at it. So
That's
our
the plan.
next guest, yeah, our next guest is Kim Downey. Kim Downey is a physical therapist and a fierce advocate for physician wellness. Through her YouTube channel and Substack, Stand Up for Doctors, she's building connection and fostering advocacy for healthy doctors. Kim's work is driven by her passion for ensuring that physicians receive the care and support they need to thrive. My friend Kim, go ahead.
Thanks, Dawn and Denise and everyone. And as Dawn said, I'm a physical therapist by training, and I recently had cancer 3 times. And one of my amazing physicians took his own life, and I felt a calling to support doctors, and that's what I do. So what I'm doing and how I'm doing it continues to be a work in progress, partially because I didn't plan on doing it. So I'm figuring it out as I go along with a little help from my friends, which include many of you and now all of you once I get to know you. And my mission is to build connection and create advocacy for healthy doctors. And a few of the things I'm doing. I'm on the traction team for Medicine Forward, and I'm very actively involved with this group as well. And I'm an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, and I'll be attending the Healthcare Leadership Collaborative in DC on March 18th. And if any of you are going to be there, let me know, and I'll be sure that we get to connect. I'm also a frequent contributor and collaborator on the Kevin MD platform, submitting articles and podcasts. And actually, I've collaborated with a number of you on this call. And as Dawn said, I have a YouTube channel and a Substack newsletter called Stand Up for Doctors. And I recently registered as a business under the same name. And actually, I saw Dr. Charity Hicks on here. I'm going to give her a shout out. She designed my logo, my Stand Up for Doctors logo, which is a patient giving a doctor a hand. And I make sea glass hearts for my doctors, and that's represented in the logo. So thanks, Charity. And as part of Medicine Forward, we're beginning to take a team of teams approach, which dovetails really well with the Healthcare Reinvention Collaborative's network of networks model. And a couple examples of some team of teams groups that I'm working on initiating is one, the working title is Patient Empathy for Clinician Wellbeing. And we are going to be meeting next week. And one of the things we're going to focus on is Doctors Day, and hopefully like a card writing campaign to make sure that doctors feel appreciated on Doctors Day. And another one is a national march of physicians and patients. And any big social change we've had, is required like a social movement, like the women's right to vote or civil rights. So we're trying to garner a huge group of physicians and patients. So hopefully for next year, sometime to have like a national march. So as far as what I need from the community, it would be wonderful if you would subscribe to my Substack newsletter and my YouTube channel and spread the word about them and follow me on LinkedIn. Those are the places that I am and that you can see the work that I'm doing and offer feedback and suggestions. And I want to make a huge impact for Doctors Day this year. So please send a thank you note to a physician who has impacted your life. And if you're a doctor, personally, doctors need doctors too, or a colleague, imagine how they would feel to get a note from you. And also, patients, if you could just send your doctor a thank you note. And if you would like to join our group exploring patient empathy and clinician well-being, or a national march of physicians and patients, please reach out to me and I can hook you up. We can get involved in those groups. And I'm also in the early stages of planning a physician wellness retreat for 2026. So reach out to me if you're a physician and you'd like to learn more about that. And as far as what I can offer to the community, I'm good at spotlighting others. So please reach out if you'd like to have a conversation, and I'll give you a warm shout out on LinkedIn. And I'm a good connector of people and resources. And when we have a conversation, I can often connect you with others that you'd like to be connected to and or share resources. And I'll continue to spotlight HRC community efforts on LinkedIn and in my newsletter. And I can also help with networking between HRC and other entities as I, make more of those connections myself.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And there's been a couple comments while you've been speaking about what a great connector you are. And that is just an understatement for sure. All right. Our next guest is Daniel Dow. Dr. Daniel Dow is dedicated to transforming the healthcare system by advocating for decentralization, servant-led structures that prioritize quality, safety, and outcomes over profit. As a third-generation physician, he's committed to restoring autonomy and entrepreneurship in medicine to create a sustainable legacy for future generations. By fostering networks of relational organizations grounded in ethical principles, he seeks to restore autonomy autonomy and entrepreneurship in medicine, creating a sustainable legacy for future generations. Dan?
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, everyone, for joining today and for your support and what all you're doing for physicians and for medicine and for healthcare. As Dawn mentioned, I am a third-generation physician. My father and grandfather were primary care physicians. My dad also practiced emergency medicine. They owned their own clinical practices, and through that, they controlled their healthcare businesses and therefore had autonomy over the way they practiced clinical medicine. I finished my radiology residency in 2004 and joined a small radiology group east of Dallas. I believed I would have the same opportunity that my father and grandfather had. The older partners that recruited myself and a few of my co-residents and friends explained to us that they were looking for a few younger radiologists to recruit and teach the business and eventually take over the business and sell their ownership to. The older partners eventually did retire from the clinical practice. However, unfortunately, they retained their ownership, management, and control over the radiology group, as well as the imaging centers. And over time, they began to behave like typical business executives, intently focused on maximizing profit over quality, safety, and other outcomes. My frustration and disappointment grew over time, and I became increasingly vocal about my disagreement with their policies, which eroded our relationship. In 2020, I left and transitioned to a non-clinical career focused on gaining a better understanding of the pain points of healthcare and looking for opportunities to network and collaborate with others to create solutions to improve the function of the business side of healthcare so we'd better support rather than obstruct physicians in their missions to serve their patients. I joined a healthcare startup accelerator here in Dallas called Health Wildcatters as a mentor and investor. And I took a role as the director of diagnostic imaging for an independent utilization management company with an alternative, non-denial, consultative, collaborative, and educational model. Unfortunately, that company was acquired by a global data management company and essentially run into the ground and lost its largest client. And I left after being with the company almost 4 years. Currently, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of Healthcare Shares, which is a marketing agency and venture fund for healthcare startups. We help healthcare startups raise capital, build their teams, and grow their businesses. And we partner with visionary founders to address systemic healthcare challenges. Over my 25-plus year career in healthcare, I've come to believe that the ownership and leadership structures and investment principles that govern healthcare organizations, including insurers, payers, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and providers, are the root cause of the dysfunction in healthcare. This unconscionable capitalist ownership prioritizes maximizing profit over quality, safety, outcomes, and satisfaction. It centralizes power in hierarchical organizations with autocratic leadership and managerial mindsets, sacrificing stakeholder value and care excellence. I strongly believe that the solution is conscious capitalist ownership structures that align incentives with outcomes for all stakeholders, including patients, providers, employers, payers, and communities, and the prioritization of value over profit. I also strongly believe in smaller organizations and decentralized autonomous organizations that are relational with distributed servant leadership that empower individuals and foster entrepreneurial mindsets and emphasize collaboration, trust, and shared decision-making. What myself and Healthcare Shares can offer, we have currently three different verticals. We have a digital marketing agency, a venture fund, and a social impact community. The digital marketing agency is designed to empower healthcare startups to raise capital directly from angel investors as an alternative to the traditional venture capital Shark Tank, and assist in recruiting executive leadership and medical advisory board members, help the startups find clients and customers to grow, and facilitate strategic connections for business development, partnerships, and pilot programs. We launched the digital marketing agency a little bit over 18 months ago, and our clients have had success in raising over $4.5 million collectively using this model and this strategy. About 6 months ago, we launched the venture fund designed to invest in healthcare startups aligned with the principles and mission of Healthcare Shares, and to build a network of investors and an advisory board to provide strategic guidance in order to drive sustainable growth and impactful innovation. We also created a social impact community to foster a vibrant community of investors, mentors, advisors, and advocates to influence healthcare policy and decision-making, and unite stakeholders to collaborate on systemic change and amplify voices for equitable healthcare. In the future, we plan to launch 2 more verticals, an accelerator program and a venture studio. The accelerator program will equip startups with the tools, mentorship, and resources they need to scale their solutions and succeed in their missions to transform healthcare, and provide hands-on guidance for startups navigating compliance, reimbursement, and scaling in the healthcare landscape. The Venture Studio will build and launch innovative healthcare startups from the ground up. This Venture Studio perspective, I believe as a physician, will integrate into startup investing the principles of the trusted long-term patient-physician relationship, emphasizing continuity, trust, and personalized service. And we hope to leverage this model to create solutions that improve satisfaction, safety, and outcomes while fostering innovation. What we need are healthcare startup clients to serve, so we may help them secure capital and grow their businesses. We need investors to partner with us to fund transformative healthcare solutions. We need mentors and advisors to share their experiences and expertise and help guide the next generation of healthcare leaders, and advocates to join our social impact community and influence healthcare policy and decision-making. I hope that our mission, resonates with you and others, and that you would be interested in, joining and collaborating with us to build a healthcare system that truly serves everyone, one that's conscious, decentralized, and focused on delivering exceptional care.
Thank you, Dan. It's really something that you put all that together and with your partners. That's a lot of money that you've distributed recently, and what an opportunity for startups. Thank you. And thanks to all of our Shine a Light guests. I really appreciate the work that you're doing and that you're willing to be here today to share it with our community. Now I welcome everyone. If you have a question, or if you know about someone's work, or you want to express appreciation for what they're doing, or ask for what you need from them, or offer what you can to them, just open your mic and we will let you have a conversation.
I wanted to make a quick comment about the diversity of offerings that the four have. It was remarkable to listen to. I appreciated it greatly.
What questions are out there? I know you've got questions.
I could ask a question.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks, Wael.
To the audience, actually. You've seen 4 very different initiatives, and they definitely touch at least an aspect of something that you do. I think it's a reasonable opportunity for you to ask how those opportunities can work better for you, whether or not you become an advocate or a subscriber to any of the services. It's really most of what we would all need as initiatives and as startups is knowing what is missing and how we can fill that gap. So if anybody can just even share how an initiative like this would be helpful to them, whether or not they are personally involved, I think that would be appreciated by everybody.
So, Wael, in your presentation, it looked like you were more reaching out to clinicians for this component. So I wanted to clarify that, right? Like you weren't looking for patients to fill out surveys.
This pilot survey was patients only, but the registry itself will address clinician and patient related sentiments. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's a way I can support you, as you know, I've had 5 surgeries in 3 different hospitals.
I know.
And I hate anesthesia, but I also wouldn't want to do without it. So I could speak to anesthesia.
Yeah, I appreciate
That's
it.
the best invention ever, right? What invention is better than anesthesia? I can't really think of anything.
I think that and penicillin are 2 of the biggest medical discoveries that have enhanced longevity.
How about an anesthesiologist with penicillin?
There you go.
Excuse me, I'm curious, Wael, is your platform something that clinicians and patients would be able to visit at some point and give their experience, or are you just collecting survey data?
It is survey based. So the point is, and I can talk about that later, the point for this specific initiative is to send out surveys to a mass number of people and then get country level responses on sentiments towards the certain things. What you're talking about is actually one other thing I'm planning to do with my company, Ether Innovation, and that's to create a space for clinicians to attend and express emotions and initiatives and what they're doing about things and where they're finding difficulties, and they can just collaborate among each other. And that's in the works, but it's not out yet. But thank you. It's a very important point.
Wael, I just wanted to ask a quick question. How could the average physician be helpful to you? Be a repository for surveys, or is there a different role that we can have to sort of be part of your mission?
Thank you. I think physicians the physicians who can be involved in this fall into 2 major groups. One would be the academic researchers who are just interested in the data for the sake of data and for trying to identify trends and gaps in current experiences of other clinicians and patients. So those clinicians would probably be interested in getting the data that we already collected and running studies on it with that, running analyses on it. The other group would be physicians who are policymakers or involved in the strategy of their institutions, where they can help us connect to those institutions, and then those institutions can utilize these services to figure out the sentiments of their population. So, for example, somebody who has, say, I'll speak from experience. My employer is an anesthesia company across the country with 250 sites across multiple states. So that company, for example, would be interested in knowing what patients feel about anesthesia practices and how we prepare them, how they recover from anesthesia. So they would be interested in running those surveys in the country. Other institutions, other physicians who are consultants for industry, for example, some industries would be interested in particular data. For example, this pilot survey was of interest to a device manufacturer that measures hemodynamic parameters, blood pressure, heart rate, and all that. So they were very interested in the specific questions when we asked about the hemodynamic monitors and how patients felt about them, because that industry, that company is interested in being patient forward. And they would want to create devices that are that take that into account, the patient experience of using those devices. And there are multiple connections that I don't even know exist that we can work together on enhancing.
Okay, so sort of either using the data to advance the cause, or connecting you with people, who might actually have some power to not only
who would want the data,
interpret the data and advocate, but actually, shift policy related to that feedback. Okay, good to know. I don't know that I'm that person, but
there's a third
right
group
now.
of physicians who work. No, but thank you. I appreciate it. There's a third group of physicians who work with governing bodies. For example, when we're working with the NIH, or we're working with big governing bodies that manage healthcare policy across the country, I think that would be very valuable information for them. So whenever anybody is exposed to this, they can basically share that it exists. It's more raising awareness at this stage than anything particular to the projects.
Yes. I would imagine that like the people who are wanting to work with you and wanting to take a patient forward or a clinician forward approach, that might sort of indicate a standout company. And I imagine there's other ways to measure that too. It's always hard to figure out what ones are reliable. Like, how do we sort of identify which companies are taking extra efforts that, they're not required to do, that are, purely, we actually want the data. We're not trying to get the data to say we got the data, but ignore what the data tells us and do what we were going to do anyway.
I completely agree. And it is very difficult to identify those, but it's a process. And it's through knowing people who know people that it eventually ends up being the people who need to know this will know from someone. So that's where the social connections come into place.
Denise has a comment.
Yeah, I'm curious, as I heard from John and I heard from Wael, I'm curious about how data that, Wael, your surveying could collect might benefit a product solution like what John is creating, helping to adapt or create that, fill a gap that might be recognized.
Yes. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're interested in is knowing what the market needs for the services that you offer. And one of the ways we ask these survey questions is we ask qualifier questions. So we start first by, are you a physician? Or have you had an inpatient experience over the past 3 years? Are you X, Y, or Z? So the qualifier question would be, are you someone who provides care to a family member in those settings? Or are you someone who is involved in providing care for family members like that? And then those who answer yes, then are taken down the logical tree of the survey. And then you can ask very particular and targeted questions. And these surveys don't get email blasted, and they don't get sent to specific people. They are sent to anybody with an IP address in the entire country. And then when we collect those responses, we compare them to the census data to see if we have a nationally representative sample. Now, if someone, for example, like John, wants to utilize one of these surveys, they can even narrow it down by geographical area. Let's say he's only interested in data from California. We can try to limit the exposure to the state of California because we can do that with IP addresses. But that's one use case that I could think of. And the fact that it's such a versatile method of collecting responses, there are other ways that we can look into as well.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. We are very interested in data, obviously, and the way our technology is structured, and the fact that we are tracking activity and behavior, and it very much in a mode of adherence. We're building quite a body of data as to where adherence breaks, why it breaks, what you do to get people back on track. Our next evolution on this, and we should probably have a conversation, is we do want to better understand patients and their proclivities and, or if you will, their interest in participating as patients. So, we have a partnership with a large retail organization that's building an elder care sector, and they are sort of our business to consumer go-to-market partner. And we're working with them to better identify their customer base from a persona standpoint. And what I mean by persona is, clustering their preferences and motivations, attitudes, behaviors, demographics of various patient audiences, what it is that they would like to see, and then being able to quickly identify who you have in front of you and what their persona is, and then be appropriate in your delivery of service or your delivery of messaging or communication, or collaborating with them on adherence of any kind. So, yeah, I'm very interested in data, and we should have a conversation. That's been in the back of my mind since we met initially. Yeah.
And Denise.
I want other people to as well, but Dan, with what you were sharing that HealthShares is doing, my interpretation the first time I heard you talk about it was that you were very focused on physicians who were creating businesses. But from what you're hearing today, are these types of innovations and startups, do they have a place within what your organization is working to support?
Oh, for sure. And I've talked with Wael and plan to talk with John as well. So yeah, Healthcare Shares serves non-physician and physician entrepreneurs. We're trying to create an ecosystem that's more supportive of physician entrepreneurs, something that Wael and I discussed. If you look at, kind of traditional healthcare startup, it's typically non-clinical because the infrastructure is really designed, more to support them. I mean, it's typically the infrastructure that's available is designed to be utilized or consumed during the business day, which is when physicians are actually, completing their clinical duties and tasks. So we're trying to create, like I said, an ecosystem of, both physician and non-physician investors and advisors that can support synchronously and asynchronously, healthcare startups through the different verticals, the digital marketing, the startup accelerator, and the future venture studio and the venture fund, of course.
Lee, I see that your mic is on. Does that mean you had something to add?
Yeah, no, well, first of all, fascinating for very eloquent and beautifully summarized presentations that have evoked a lot of thoughts, hence why it's taken me some time to process before talking. But yeah, I think the one thing that I'm experiencing at the moment in the UK that really talks to probably all of the speakers today and the things that they're talking about is that I'm involved in a lot of groups over here where we're trying to partner and collaborate with either data sources or services that start to layer up insight that allows us to get a better, more granular picture of needs. And the thing that we're most passionate about is trying to then localize that. So a lot of the movement over here is around removal of healthcare inequalities and around understanding the different traits of specific communities within a location in order to be able to tailor engagement, both from a healthcare professional perspective and more importantly, patient perspective. And if we're looking at things like improvement of patient adherence or insights from questionnaire data sources or indeed some of those topics that Kim's really passionate about in terms of, that patient empathy and that healthcare professional piece, I think all of this lends itself to the removal of silos, to the open-armed approach that I think Dan in particular advocates for, which is that kind of conscious, non-commercially motivated forum where there can be commercial benefit to be had further down the line for sure, but as a start point, removing silos and opening each other's sources up in order to get better granularity, I think is an observation that I'm seeing a lot of in the UK right now, because understanding the subtleties is what's going to truly improve patient adherence and improve healthcare system change. And that's not going to get done if we don't all come together, because there's a lot of fabulous ideas and solutions out there that sit beautiful in isolation, but we may not truly extrapolate the value from each of these things individually if we don't bring them together. And that's kind of why I've come on this call from the UK, and I keep turning up from the UK because I'm super keen to look at that cross geography pollination as well as within geography. So with everyone's permission, I'd love to reach out to all of the speakers today and certainly offer some complementary data and insights from my tool, from what we're doing here in the UK. And if any of those things plus my connections are of any use, I'd be really interested to see where that took us.
Beautiful. Thanks. You just pointed out why we're here,
Yeah.
right?
And
That
beautiful
collaboration.
segue that we've got one that dropped in the chat as well, Dawn. Did you see that? Mike Herman
Oh,
shared some
Mike's.
insights about his high school cares, cancer advocacy and resiliency education. So he has his contact information there as well. He's also in the community space. But Mike is a wonderful, passionate resource. Kim, like you, he started into this because of his cancer experience. So, yeah.
And we'll be
Thank you.
speaking because of this group. We have a date
Yes.
on the calendar.
We have
Nice.
a date, and
Excellent.
thank you for bringing that up, Denise.
Yeah.
You bet. Yeah. Great. All right. I think we should probably get ready to segue into our next piece. Thank you all for joining us today. This is the radical collaboration, right, that we're dedicated to. And we're about to jump into our network conversations where you'll be given an opportunity for one-on-one conversations with someone else on the call. Before we do that, there are a couple of announcements. If you'd like to connect with any of your guests or anyone else on the call, reach out on the HRC platform. They're there, and that's a great place to connect. We want to encourage you to go there and take advantage of the growing community that we have. The next Shine a Light event is February 18th. We have our monthly public event on February 11th, which I'm really excited about. It's Reimagining Long-Term Care, a Systems Approach to Change. And Denise, you want to take it away for network conversations?
Yes. So I'm going to start to create breakout rooms. So